Journey to Truth podcast is brought to you by Omnia Radiation Balancer. Omnia Radiation Balancer is a device that protects against the microwave radiation that we're bombarded with every day from the cell phone towers, Wi-Fi routers, smart meters, all of it. Tim Sanders, who we've had on a previous podcast, has developed a solution that negates the threat to our vibrational body from these microwaves. It's a patch that you apply to any radiating device, such as a phone, laptop, like I said, smart meter, microwave, Wi-Fi routers, all of it. And it's proven to reduce DNA damage, reduce stress, headaches, anxiety. It helps improve blood circulation, immune system function, energy levels, sleep quality. There's a whole laundry list of stuff it does. For more information and to purchase one of these patches, click the link below at omniaradiationbalancer.com. We hope you're enjoying the podcast. Thanks for watching.
Boom.
Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Hey, you're listening to Journey to Truth podcast. Tonight we have on holistic pharmacist Lori Wise, aka The Wise Pharmacist, which is also the name of her YouTube channel, which you guys can all follow her on. She is a veteran pharmacist, and she has a very interesting story. So she was recently fired from her job for speaking against vaccines. And we're going to turn it over to her and let her tell us more about that, because people need to know that this kind of stuff is happening out there, and it's a real problem.
Yep, it is. And, you know, I was working for, it was called Medication Therapy Management. I won't give the name of the company, but I'd been working there for a little over a year and never been written up, never been reprimanded, except for one teeny reprimand I did get. And this is where I think I got on the radar as far as vaccines. When it came to be flu season, and I was working on staff with like 20 other pharmacists. It was a job where I'm on the phone all day, literally with people all over the U.S., pretty sick people. It's nothing now in this day and age for our seniors, people over 40 really, to be on like 6, 8, 10, 15, 20 medications. I mean, that is literally what's considered normal. And we all know it's not normal. Just because something's common doesn't mean it's normal, right?
Correct.
But it's just so widely accepted now. And so I'm on the phone with these people, and I was supervising 25 interns, pharmacy interns, and flu season comes around, and I felt like I cannot just be quiet and not warn these really children that are in their 20s, right? They're the age of my kids. My kids are in their 20s. About the flu shot. And so I wrote this email that I sent out to the whole staff, just about using critical thinking skills, really. It wasn't like, do it, don't do it. It was just more like information. Do you know what's in the flu shot? Do you know what's being injected? Do you know what the statistics are as far as how the flu keeps getting worse and worse every year? We're not getting more well. We're getting more sick as a society. And so I got called on the carpet for that in the nicest possible way. It was called a positive coaching thing. And but I think at that point, I really put myself on the radar. And in my phone calls to my patients, a lot of times I would come on, on the phone with patients who were really seeking to get off some of their prescription drugs. They were, the prices of the prescription drugs are insane. They're just tired of popping pills. They don't feel good. And so as my conversations with them would ensue, they would say, is there anything that you can do to help me get off some of these medications? And so there was a book that I was recommending called How Not to Die. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
No.
It's by an MD, so I felt very comfortable because I'm recommending something by an MD as opposed to something homeopathic or acupuncture. And not that I'm against any of those things, but because I was working for the insurance companies, I needed to be recommending things that were, allopathic or whatever. But anyway, this guy he's vegan, and he teaches people how to reverse their disease. improve and reverse their disease. So I recommend this book. Well, they hired a new manager who was, from a big chain who's totally into volume. And I mean, from day one that he came on board in the summer, I think it was June of 2019, it's kind of like he was lasered in on me, like nitpicking me, telling me this is not client approved. And I'm going, well, why would the insurance company not approve of helping people get off their meds? Because one of our advertisements as a company was that we help reduce medication costs. Well, if you can help somebody improve or reverse their disease, that's less claims adjudicated through the pharmacy to the insurance company, yada, yada. So, but anyway, ultimately, this book is why I was told I was fired. I got called into an office one day and just, you're recommending this book and it's non-client approved. And I literally sat there and said, so I'm being fired for helping people get well.
It's bad for business.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it's all it's about with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was, I really don't think it was bad for business in the sense of,
well,
I believe I was helping the insurance companies, but yeah, as far as pharma, I was not helping pharma.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, you're threatening their profit margin. They don't. That's all they are. They work on profit. We all know that it's not about curing the people. We say this all the time.
It's sick care. It's not really health care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They want you sick, and they start working on that the moment you're born. And
Yep.
Yeah.
And they don't stop.
Yeah, even before you're born. When you think about the vaccines that women are getting, with infants, I mean, with they're pregnant and they've never been tested. So it really starts before you're born, and then the day you're born, you get the Hep B, and it just snowballs from there.
So what's some of the most shocking information you've come across that you've discovered via maybe ingredients that they're putting in this stuff, or even with the pharmaceutical drugs, some of the side effects? I mean, there's so much I know you can tell us about. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, in pharmacy school, and I graduated in 92 and started practicing in 93. The one of the things I was majorly struck by was that we were not curing people. When I graduated, Prozac was fairly new. Lisinopril, that's a blood pressure medicine that works in the kidney. The proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, and you're learning about how the body works, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you realize what an amazing miracle our bodies even are. And then you're learning about these drugs and how they work and how they tweak this and how they make this stop or increase that. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, I can see where, all right, say Prozac, for instance, right out of the gate, maybe somebody's depressed and so it helps them, but what's going to happen long term? And that's always been my issue. When you alter something that the body does naturally, you're going to come up with problems. It's the same with an automobile. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to increase that. And that's what I saw play out in my years in pharmacy. I was mostly in retail. I'm a third generation pharmacist. My grandfather was a pharmacist. My father and two uncles are pharmacists. So it's kind of in my blood, if you will. But as I saw that people weren't getting well, and then as the years progressed, that they couldn't come off the drugs, they were having major health issues because of the drugs. They saw that the drugs, made people worse. They needed more drugs in order to keep taking the drugs they're taking. And it's just the snowball.
Yeah.
And then as I started researching vaccines and realizing the ingredients, because that's not something that we're taught in pharmacy school, or medical school doesn't teach it, nursing school doesn't teach it. It's like, I thought like we were it was a syringe full of antigens, but I had no idea there was formaldehyde or what the antigens were grown on, or polysorbate 80, Triton X, they're using aborted fetal cells, canine kidney cells, monkey kidney cells. And when you, and aluminum, mercury,
egg proteins, yeah.
Yes, egg proteins, and that your body has no way to naturally detox, because in pharmacy school you learn that about the first pass effect. So in other words, when you take a medication, that medication has to be buffered in a way, in a matrix that can sustain the gut flora, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach. But when you inject something, the bioavailability to the body is so much greater because it doesn't have to go through the gut, right? It doesn't have the natural detox. So when you think about the fact that you're injecting all this stuff into people and you realize what you're doing, and you're like, how can anyone be well with this going on?
Yeah.
And they can't.
And they're not.
And it's the cause for so many issues. People are getting sick all the time. I have friends who, their kids are sick every other week and they don't know why, because,
Exactly.
and they're just, and it's a real problem, and it actually hinders their whole lives.
It does. It alters their whole lives. And that was another kind of really weird thing for me. I'm the mother of 2 children that were born 96 and 98. I graduated from pharmacy school in 92, and my mother, who was very much a forerunner when it came to nutrition and just critical thinking and the whole bit, she had given me cassette tapes before my first child was born, my daughter, from a naturopathic doctor who talked about letting the body heal itself and the foods you needed to be feeding kids and breastfeeding and how, important that was for a baby. And but he also talked about vaccines, not in this, he didn't go over, I don't remember ingredients, but it had to do with the facts that vaccines really did not eradicate the diseases that they claimed that they eradicate. And I remember listening to all this, and I ended up not vaccinating my kids. And so my kids never had ear infections. They never had allergies. Like, looking back, my life was such a walk in the park. But back then, it just, nobody was asking about it. I homeschooled. I'm in Florida. We have religious exemptions. I mean, it just wasn't a big deal. Nobody ever said, what do you mean you didn't vaccinate? Like, that, it never came up.
Sure.
And now that we've got all this turmoil going on, really because the pharmaceutical industry is to a point that they are threatened. Now it's this huge deal. And I look at what parents are going through, and I'm like, oh my God, I just can't imagine. I can't for a minute imagine. And I'm so grateful, because I feel like I dodged a bullet, and it was totally on a fluke, if you will.
Sure. And people are standing up, though, because the whole thing in New York, that they were trying to make mandatory vaccines, and I don't know how
New Jersey.
I don't know how many people stood up and signed a petition against it, and actually.
Or it was first New York, and then there was the New Jersey one.
Yeah.
Recently, yeah.
But they won. They won the case, the lawsuit. There was a lawsuit filed, and they won.
Mm-hmm.
So people are standing up, and there is something you can do about it, but it has to happen in numbers, and people need to be aware, first of all.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, I know a lot of nurses personally who are totally pro-vax, and if you say anything to them at all about it, they get triggered, and they start laying into you like you're trying to kill everybody. And it's really sad, because you're trying to tell them as a friend, and it's just, they learned it in school, so it's right.
Right, exactly. And doctors are really, really bad about that too. I had an ongoing discussion with a doctor this past summer that I actually met at a 4th of July party. And it was just amazing how his mind was so, and this is my thing too as a healthcare professional. When you start discounting people's stories of pain, like a mother says, this happened to my child after vaccination, or even after taking a drug, whatever it might be, and you say, oh, they're crazy, or they're too emotional. I mean, I mean, that is to me the worst. For that person to even call themselves a healthcare professional is almost, it's insanity. That's not, a healthcare professional is about caring and loving and listening and being focused on that patient and their reality. And that's, you know, in the years I was in retail pharmacy, like, you know, we come out of school and we're taught, oh, well, that horrible reaction only happened in 2% of the people or 1%. Well, how many was that? I mean, if you got 35,000 people in a study, 2% is a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know? And as my years went by, and that patient of mine that I was bonded to, that I was connected to, you know, went into kidney failure after being on a blood pressure medicine that worked in the kidney, or almost died from a flu shot I gave them, or whatever. I mean, that's a real game changer. And then suddenly you start like dispensing these medications and you're looking at the bad side and going, oh, and Mrs. Smith, I just want to be sure and warn you about this down here and make sure you want to be on this medication. And it's just, it really changes the whole dynamics of how you practice as a healthcare professional when you realize the harm. Because when you come out of pharmacy school, it's all kind of, oh, not a big deal, just 2%, not to worry, you know, kind of like the whole Vioxx debacle.
Yeah, and another problem that people or patients are seeing with their doctors is like verbal aggression when you deny the vaccines. And I was doing some reading, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and please, anybody listening, comment below if these numbers are wrong, because I don't know. Maybe you might know, but Blue Cross Blue Shield offers a $40,000 bonus for their doctors if they vaccinate, if they fully vaccinate 100 patients under the age of 2, and that gets doubled to $80,000 if they get to 200 patients. But there's a catch. They only get that bonus if 63% of the patients across the board, at least 63% of the patients, get vaccinated. So if that 63% isn't met, no one gets a bonus. So now they're sitting there trying to tell this mother to vaccinate their child, and they're saying no, and that, you know, this could mean $40,000 for the doctor.
Exactly.
So, and that is in the back of his head, you know, so he's going to push it no matter what it's going to do to the person.
Exactly. Yeah, that's similar to the numbers I've seen. I haven't looked at those numbers recently, but just the fact that there's an incentive for vaccinating and it has nothing to do with that individual or giving informed consent. You know, and honestly, if any parent were to look at, you know, just say measles, for instance, what comes with the measles, you know, a rash, fever, in rare cases, encephalitis, very rare. And then you look at the MMR vaccine and all the horrific side effects. I mean, it's like this long. What parent with informed consent wouldn't go, you know what? We were at 1 in 100,000 in mortality before the vaccine here in the US. So I think I'm just going to go with the measles and that lifelong immunity.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But they're not given a fair shake. It's money. You know?
I think I just read it. It's officially been, I don't know, announced, but it's official now that more people have died from the polio vaccine than polio itself. I don't know if
I've seen that in multiple places.
Yeah, and MMR too. MMR for sure.
Yeah.
And then now FDA just approved an Ebola vaccine, and now what do you think? What happened?
Ebola's back.
An Ebola
What
outbreak.
a coincidence.
An Ebola outbreak. Yeah.
Yeah, in Congo.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's insane, and
It is.
it's literally a weapon now. Just for them to make
it's a
money.
bioweapon essentially.
Yeah. So you're right. And you know, when I was working as a pharmacist before I was even awake to the whole vaccine thing, because here's the thing, since I didn't vaccinate my kids, I was not aware of what was going on with the schedule for children until 2018 February. I was seeing all these flu deaths from kids, and then as I'm reading the articles, I can tell they gave them Tamiflu, because it would say, you know, and the child had a nosebleed. Well, you don't have a nosebleed from the flu. but
Yeah.
that's one of the horrible side effects of Tamiflu. So I stood up and made a video about that. And that's where I really got launched into learning about vaccines, because I acquired like a huge following on Facebook once they realized that, a healthcare professional that's awake. And then I really looked at the childhood vaccine schedule, and I was like, are you kidding me? And when you start doing the research about the incidence of death from these diseases that we're vaccinating for, Hib, the meningococcal vaccine, the pneumococcal vaccines, pertussis, like the infant mortality is so freaking low. How are we justifying vaccinating all these people with these vaccines that have these horrific side effects? And then, of course, the aluminum, which is in so many of them and is obviously a neurotoxin and getting passed to the brain, because what else is the explanation for all the neurological issues that children have? I mean,
well, and like you said, the long-term effects too. Aluminum is the cause of Alzheimer's.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, and
There's just no good way to spin injecting aluminum into your bloodstream. Like, I don't understand how anyone can possibly defend that or think that there's nothing wrong with that.
exactly.
or any of the other stuff, really, that's it. But like aluminum, mercury, it's like, and you see these people that get so angry at anti-vaxxers, and we're the dangerous ones and stuff. And we're literally the ones just saying, hey, there's red flags left and right with vaccines, and we're just saying we're concerned and we're asking questions, and we want some accountability here and some real science to back up, and we're getting none of that, and all we're getting is ridicule, censorship, hate, and telling us we're terrible people. And that's
right.
it. There's nothing substantial to like. They're not starting a dialogue and saying, okay, let's talk about this. We'll present our information to back. It's like they'll put up some like BS numbers that when you look into it, they're all skewed and like, or made up completely. And there's really no real safety test on. There's no real science.
Double blind and no double blind.
But when you try to point all this stuff out, you're a conspiracy theorist and you're just a crazy person. You're whatever. You just get called names, and then that's it. It's like, it's so frustrating.
Yes, I know. I had that yesterday. I had 2 trolls. I don't know what I did to attract them, but one of them was accusing me of lying about being a pharmacist, which I'm like, okay, whatever. And here's the thing: I'm not giving out my information. I'm not giving out my license number. I'm not, if you don't believe me, I really don't care. I don't have to prove anything to you. Yeah. But then he was talking about the difference between compounds and elements, and that I didn't know the periodic table. And I'm going, what does that have to do with mercury and vaccines?
That's a classic one. They try to make you look like a stupid person, and they're like.
Right. And the thing is, I have enough of a following now. Like, the people that follow me, they know that I am fighting for them, and they know I've lost one job over them. And then not them, but because I'm gonna be on the firing line. Yeah. I've made that decision. I'm taking a stand. I'm not putting up with the BS. I'm not watching the children be slaughtered. I'm going to do everything I can. And they know that. And so when you get some lunatic and then he started telling me how he was, I don't remember all the accolades he claimed he had behind his name, but I said, well, you're just a sad reality that some people are so smart, they're stupid. So
it's all ego. That's all it is.
Well,
it's all just their ego so attached to that they think they can't possibly imagine they're wrong. So they don't ever even try to look into that, that's all it is.
Yeah, we run into it every day doing this with the
podcast.
All
the time. Yep. On the internet, it's so easy to for people to attack too, so you just get it so much on the internet, unfortunately.
Yeah, you do. And if you're not willing to take the heat, I guess get out of the kitchen. But
it doesn't make it any better, but it's
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm getting paid a lot of money here to stand up and talk about vaccines, you know.
Yeah.
Then I got another job working from home for a medication therapy management company, and then they canned me before I even got done with the training.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you know what? I can wait tables. I mean, and I'm not below that. Like I'm actually in the process of building my own business where I do independent medication therapy management and really work with people that want to get off medication, because there are so many out there, and they just need somebody to show them the way. It's like they're sitting in a dark room and they just need somebody to turn on the light and go, here, go this way. And that's what I was doing in my job, you know, that I got fired for the book. But that's my passion.
Yeah. And I know I have family members who are on medications, and too many, if you ask me. And I see the mentality is that as soon as something happens, as soon as I get sick, I need to see my doctor. I need to get this pill. I need to get this pill. And when you don't understand the alternatives, you think you need those pills. You think that's the only way. And that's a real problem. And obviously that's what you're fighting for. But it's sad because is there any test that's done that shows what all these pills do when they're taken it together, you know?
No.
And then even if they are warned by their doctor, don't take this with this, you think people listen to that? Or don't take this with alcohol? Some people take it with alcohol on purpose, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. And I was reading, one thing I've done is I've LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys are on LinkedIn at all. I've been on there for years, but I've never really done anything with it. And it was actually Rachel that opened my eyes to what a powerful tool that was, because you can post videos and that kind of stuff. So I just started connecting with people like there was no tomorrow. And I started posting videos, just educating healthcare providers. My videos, considering I've just been on there for not very long, a little over a month, have really done pretty well, I think, because my thing is, even if I educate 5 other pharmacists and they just start to think like, wow, I never really knew that was in vaccines. I never really knew, because that's what was happening at work. I think that was another reason they came, because they could see like the students and other pharmacists were starting to go, she might be onto something here. Like, we never knew that the stuff was in these syringes, you know, even though we weren't vaccinating ourselves. So, you know, one of my pharmacist friends had said, she totally altered the way she talked to patients about the flu shot before she was recommending it. And she kind of went to, so how do you feel about the flu shot? Which, you know, it wasn't a big deal, but at least she was starting to question.
Mm-hmm.
Because that to me is a big thing that needs to happen, is that healthcare professionals need to start really understanding what we're injecting into people. And if you decide that that's a good thing, I mean, that's your choice. You're your own person. You do what you feel is right. But the reality is we don't know, because we're not taught this in school. We're just taught, do it. Here's the guidelines, and that's it.
Yeah.
Safe and effective.
And the red flags are everywhere. You know, we know like the head of the CDC, if it was in 2009 or something, whenever it was made the head of vaccines at Merck.
Yeah. Right.
And
somebody.
And then, so the person who's in the head of vaccines, that person, they're the one who decides whether this vaccine should be granted or not, or whatever. And essentially, when it comes down to it, they are in charge of the health of all of our children.
Yeah.
So how do you put, you know, that person technically should be more powerful, has more power than the president, you know?
Exactly.
So it's so funny, because the CDC is what's used to back up the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. Like, oh, look at the CDC's data. Oh, the CDC says this, when they're literally just like a vaccine company, because
they own all
the head of the CDC was the head of Merck before, and they're literally tied to each other.
It's all intertwined, yeah.
So the CDC needs the vaccines to be pushed no matter what, no matter if they're safe or not, or healthy or effective or not. And they will skew any data to make, because they're not going to put out any real data or science that makes them show what they're really doing and what's really happening. Of course, they're not going to do that. Why would they?
Exactly.
It's like, it just takes a little bit of critical thinking. That's literally all it takes.
Yeah, like a smidge.
Come on. Just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so obvious.
And when you realize, when you put all this together in a nutshell, there's no other way to look at it besides this is corruption. It's corruption. It is totally corrupt. And I like what you said the other night when I was talking to you about, you used a water analogy. The truth is coming out. People are going to find out, and it's like water. It's going to find a way, no matter what kind of censorship they put up, no matter what kind of laws they push. It's going to get around it. It's going to find a way, and people are eventually going to know. It's just right now we have to fight for it.
Exactly. So, that's why I'm doing the LinkedIn thing. I'm continuing to make videos, just really whatever is put on my heart. Sometimes it's based on a story that I see or whatever, but just having that voice and saying, and I don't care if Facebook is censoring me. I don't care. The truth is coming out, and I'm not going to sit by and be like, well, I just gave up because it was too hard, or, I got fired or whatever. I'm not doing that. I got to stand up, and I just have, my baby, my daughter had my first grandbaby, December the 10th. And I mean, praise God, my daughter's unvaxxed, and she refused to have B and vitamin K and the eye ointment for the baby. It's kind of a long story, but I mean, you guys, we ended up being held hostage in the hospital for 7 days. And the doctor that we had, she was a Nazi. They ended up treating this infant just, oh, well, we think she might have pneumonia. We think she might have meningitis, and we need to do a spinal tap. And we were just like, no. And I was so proud of my daughter. She ended up in the NICU with this infant, because what happened, she inhaled amniotic fluid and a little bit of blood when she was delivered. So she had some congestion in her right lung. So she had a little bit of a breathing problem. She needed a little bit of oxygen, but they started treating her for pneumonia. They started treating for meningitis. I mean, and they wanted to get so invasive with this infant. And I literally, every night I'm coming home just praying a hedge of protection around this child, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but US is like #1 out of 20 developed countries for infant mortality. We are horrible.
It's terrible. Yeah.
And so anyway, my daughter she stayed with that baby every single night. She would not leave that child's side. And I mean, I think the doctor finally gave up. It was like, but the nurses, this is what was so interesting. The nurses were in my daughter's corner, and toward the end of her stay, they were like, you're one of the smart parents. We've been following your story. We're so proud of you, because she would not back down when it came to vitamin K in anything. We weren't doing anything invasive. And so the kid ended up on antibiotics for 7 days, which drove me insane, but still, and she's been fine ever since she got home. She's good, but it was just another example of how horrible our healthcare system is. Horrible.
And who knows what would have happened? Who knows what would have happened if they would have pushed, or if you didn't stop them from doing any of that stuff. It's sad.
Yeah, I told the doctor, I sat down with the doctor. She's like, well, if we're going to find out if she has meningitis, we need to do a spinal tap. I'm like, where would she have gotten meningitis? Where would she have gotten meningitis? My daughter had a completely uncomplicated pregnancy. Well, we can't rule it out. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're going to do a spinal tap because we can't.
And she's like, why are you against the spinal tap? I said, because it's invasive. Well, I've never had, but we stood our ground,
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for her, and congratulations too.
Yes, thank you. Beautiful baby girl. So
honestly,
so happy. But it was just getting her out of the hospital.
So I'm gonna just bring a spiritual aspect into this. I saw a Reiki healer the other night. I was telling you about this. I saw a Reiki healer who I didn't know the first time I ever met her. I've been seeing a certain healer for a while. I was going to somebody new, and it's almost like a psychic reading at the time. They get like messages and stuff. Immediately when she touched me, she's like, I'm seeing I'm seeing injections, I'm seeing a needle, I'm seeing some type of fluid. And whatever it is not compatible with your body, and your body wants it out. And I'm like laying there like, no, I don't think so. And I'm trying to rack my brain. She's like, are you sure nothing? And she goes, because I'm seeing a clear vision of this. And I said, oh, you know what? I've been having a lot of dental work done, and they've been giving me Novocaine shots. And for me, it takes more than a typical one shot to numb me up. My body rejects it anyway. It doesn't work. So they have to give me like 3 shots, sometimes 5 shots, just to numb me up enough to do the work. And as soon as I said that, she was like, yes, that's it. And she actually worked on that session, removing the energy of that Novocaine, whatever was in there, pulling that energetically, pulling it out of my body. But what's interesting is she picked up on that without not knowing anything.
That's amazing.
And it was only a week. It had only been like a week or 2 ago, whenever it happened, when I had the shots in my mouth. And it was still there. She was like, yeah, she goes, it is not compatible with your body. She went on telling me, she's like, no foreign ingredients, anything. Your body, we're not meant to have anything injected in us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nothing.
Not to mention all the insane stuff that's in vaccines.
Yeah.
There's just read an insert and like, who was it? Somebody recently called the like poison control and like read off the list of stuff that's in the insert. They're like, what would you do if I gave my child, and they just like started naming everything, and they're like, oh my God, like, yeah. And that was their reaction basically.
Sure.
And they're like, oh yeah, I just read a list of vaccine insert.
Yeah.
I have vaccine ingredients. Oh my God.
But this is okay to inject in our children, apparently.
Yeah.
It's totally safe. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, come on, people just.
And another thing, we're not taught how to heal our bodies correctly, naturally. No. And Mother Earth actually provides all of that for us. And just from some research I've done, typically within 50 miles of every person around us, Mother Earth provides everything we need to cure ourselves, to heal ourselves, and be healthy humans. But we're not taught. We don't know how to go into the woods and harvest this stuff and utilize it, and what's poison and what's not. That should be what they're teaching in school. That is more important than anything, because if shit does hit the fan, the whole system goes down, and the people who are relying on these medicines, they're going down with it. But if we can just educate ourselves on how to go harvest a specific mushroom, or this plant does this, or whatever, it could go a long way, and we can pass that information on, just like the Native Americans used to do. You know, it can
grow your own food.
We can thrive.
Exactly. And so much of it really is just basically good nutrition. You know, this is where my mother really taught me. You know, she got into juicing and raw foods, and just she got connected with people that were really into that, and teaching us how to live to thrive and not just survive, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And whenever even you put a prescription drug in your body, it alters what your body does naturally. So it's a foreign invader. You know, they're just horrible. I used to tell people when I was in retail, I would be like, yeah, I went to pharmacy school. I know how this crap works in my body, and I don't want any part of it. And even, you know, as a grandmother, I'm on 0 prescription drugs. You know, if God forbid, if I was in a car accident or something horrible happened, I mean, the U.S. is the place to be for emergency medicine. But man, when it comes to curing people, there's no such thing. Western medicine, there are no cures.
No. Yeah, exactly.
And it's the saddest thing. It's sad to think of that.
Yeah.
Because,
and if you want to get a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, conspiracy realm, why are holistic doctors dying mysteriously left and right?
Yeah.
Like, and if they're not dying, they're at least being suppressed and censored.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
so much. It's like they're presenting the information that will like cure people of all these diseases and like get people to be healthy and their body operating how it should be operating in a healthy state. But that information is so dangerous to the system we have.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like this death system. It's like this, it's made to literally keep everyone sick and basically dying, and then keep you dependent on these pills and these medicines and
Right,
the whole
exactly.
healthcare system.
Your blood pressure is only going to be normal as long as you're popping the pill. Or your depression is only going to feel alleviated, assuming you don't commit suicide on the medicine or some other crazy thing, because it is mind altering. You know, and even gun control.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody today and I was like, listen, isn't it crazy that guns have been around for how many thousands upon thousands of years? And it's only in the last, since the 80s that these shootings have just started to go through the roof.
Skyrocket. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that guns changed, it's that somehow the people changed. So what happened to the people?
Some form of mind control.
Or out of control.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
No,
I don't know. And I was also, I can honestly say I've been encouraged since I've been pursuing LinkedIn, because I realize there are a lot of pharmacists out there that are asking questions, and they're starting to realize that there's something wrong. And I haven't figured out how the algorithm on LinkedIn works, like, because it has me connected to all kind of people. And there's a lot of people out there that are speaking out, and they're sharing, you know, what's being shared on Facebook. And it's very cool, because at this point, as near as I can tell, LinkedIn is completely uncensored. It's fertile ground, which is very cool. But a lot of pharmacists are getting into integrative type medicine, where you're pulling in homeopathy and acupuncture, and because they're realizing the system isn't curing anybody. So that on one hand is encouraging, you know.
People are going to be heading over to places like LinkedIn. We're going to find different avenues to take if they're going to block us, if they're going to censor us. You know, I know you have your YouTube channel that you present all this type of information, and you keep your videos very short and to the point, which is great because people have a short attention span. And I know your channel's fairly new, but these types of channels should be doing way better than they are, because you're getting suppressed, whether you like it or not. You know, there's ways. You know, we're on Twitter. And somebody sent me a website that you can go and find out if you're shadow banned. And there's a list of checked boxes that tells you certain things they ban. And we haven't had Twitter that long, and every box was checked for us.
Wow.
And they just clearly say, yes, this channel exists, blah, blah, blah. These are the things that they're banned for. And it's everything. There isn't one that's unchecked. And I know we would put something up and we wouldn't get any likes. We wouldn't get any retweets.
Yeah,
And it's just it's funny because
it's like, all right, we don't have that many followers, but we're getting like no likes and retweets.
Yeah.
Or like one.
Right.
And it's like something's not right here, and then there was the proof right there. Yeah.
But I think it's amazing what you're doing with your channel. And,
yes.
And
well, thank you.
And I haven't checked out LinkedIn. I'm not even really familiar with how it all works, but so that's another.
It's kind of worth getting on, guys. I would say, if you were on there, I would definitely promote, because I've got like over 1,500 followers now, and
nice.
I just think the more, and I literally acquired that. Like, I think I maybe had 70 followers in the beginning of November. It's a cool platform. I've been very impressed as I've explored it. But the cool thing is, you're really dealing a lot with healthcare professionals, and that's why my videos are more geared toward, like my last video that I made, I was just going over statistics, because most healthcare professionals have no clue how bad America sucks. And I put it out there. You know,
can we quote that for the?
That's gonna be on our.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says that. Yeah.
We really do. Because, we go to work and we're in our little fishbowl of whatever we do, and then you leave work and you're so stressed, because the healthcare industry really is horrible to its workers now. I don't care whether you're a nurse, pharmacist, doctor. We're spread so thin because it's all about profit. And then we come home and we're, just spent. I know the 10, 12 years I was a pharmacy manager at the grocery store pharmacy down the street. Like, I was tunnel vision, dude. I was raising kids and going to work. And I had no clue what was going on the outside. And so that's part of the awareness that I've wanted to say is look how horrible America is in all these arenas. 54% of children have a chronic, illness. 136 is autistic. Asthma. It's so funny. If you just Google asthma in kids, literally the literature from peer-reviewed stuff is, we don't know. We don't know why all these kids have asthma. We just don't get it, And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Because it just never was like this. I'm old enough that in the early 80s, when I started working in my grandfather's pharmacy, there was no Ritalin going out the door. You didn't have kids. They were maybe on an antibiotic and a cough syrup. That was it. Unless you had some child that was horribly sick, and that was one in a gazillion, really. And now, antibiotics, asthma medications, ADD meds, ADHD, it's just autoimmune disorders. The kids are so sick. But most healthcare professionals really don't get it unless they're working in the arena of pediatrics.
And what are your thoughts on how this all ties into all these autistic children? I know that's a big issue, and you kind of just answered it, but I mean, to me, it's directly tied to these vaccines.
Well, here's the thing. When you inject aluminum and neurotoxins, mercury, God knows what the formaldehyde's doing. I mean, formaldehyde is carcinogenic. If you just go to the data safety sheet on the CDC website about formaldehyde, it talks about ingesting. It talks about inhaling. It doesn't say a dang thing about injecting, as if, well, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
but
it's so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
It's like, how? Yeah.
And so, but when you look at vaccines and the neurological issues that they cause, and it's all right there in the package insert, seizures, encephalitis, the list of side effects is so insane. How can you not say, like, do they directly cause autism? Well, if a child has encephalitis, brain swelling, and seizures and neurological damage, isn't that really what autism is? It's like brain damage. Honestly, I go, how could anybody not believe that vaccines, when you really see what's in them?
Most people are uneducated, and that's the problem. And thank you for doing what you're doing, because you're helping people to become aware. But unfortunately, we're battling with the propaganda from the other side, and a lot of people have already heard all that, and some people are adamant that that's the truth, and they will fight against you. So really, it's like the people that aren't sold on that, but are still open, to I don't know if they're good or not. Those are the people that we can really reach and wake up. And once a critical mass of people wakes up to it, the whole system's gonna collapse, in my opinion. So keep going. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
And it's like not a day goes by, and I'm on so many Facebook groups now, I can't even count, that I don't, vaccine injury related ones, that I don't see either another child dead or damaged, hospitalized, life-threatening injuries from a vaccine.
So heartbreaking to see. Yeah.
It's so sad.
It is.
But, you got to think about all the vaccines that are given every day in America to all these children. And it's just a matter of time, like you just said, the scales are going to tip. And it's going to flip. And
yeah, absolutely.
My heart breaks for the parents that have to lose children in the meantime.
Yeah.
Really does.
What you just touched on a minute ago about the side effects, like the crazy amount of side effects. It just made me think about those infomercials. They have to hire a speed talker to list them all, and like in like 20 seconds because there's like 120 seconds. You can't, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have enough commercial time to list all the side effects.
And they don't want that, you know, they're like, if we're going to shorten any part of this, it's going to be the side effects, of course.
Yeah.
Just speed through. Yeah, get it on there so we can say we said it.
While the mom
say
is
like 1,000,000 miles an hour.
While the mom is pushing her kid on the swing in the playground, and they're just living the happiest life ever. You know?
Yeah.
It's funny. When did you start becoming suspicious? Like during school and when you graduated, like, or way after, or not? So probably not during school, but at what point did you start becoming suspicious?
Well, I mean, I was always concerned in school because nobody was getting well. And when I went on rotations, I had to do, it was a psych hospital in San Antonio, the state psychiatric hospital. Oh my God, that was an education. And my heart just broke for the people that, I mean, they were legitimately crazy, but all they're doing is putting them on drugs and, you know, suppressing their symptoms. Nobody's ever leaving. So that broke my heart. And that was, honestly, I questioned if I had picked the right profession, but of course by then it was too late. And but then when I graduated and I started working in retail, I over the years, and I can't tell you when the light really hugely dawned, but just saw that the pharmaceutical industry, number one, it's opportunistic. It plays on people's ignorance. Oh, yeah. And so what pharma does is I call it reinventing the wheel. And it is so maddening to me, and this is how I know the FDA is all involved, you know, pharma, CDC, FDA, they're all one big conglomeration, feeding off of each other and feeding off of the profits. But the FDA would allow pharma to take an old drug and reformulate it in some form or fashion, and then get a new patent. And that's where the money comes in, because now they've got a new drug, which is really an old drug that they've reformulated, they've tweaked it slightly, and they're charging an astronomical price. And so then these people would come in, and this is what infuriated me too with doctors, is that doctors would write for these drugs, which I'm sure they were getting incentives, knowing full well, oh, this drug's been out on the market for quite a while, but now, you know, it's been tweaked. And they would give like the patient a coupon card or something that says, you know, $25 copay. And the patient would come in, then I'd have to order the drug, which is frustrating because I've already got the drug on my shelf. It's just in a little bit different formulation. And so I'd have to be that liaison that would say, listen, first of all, the coupon's not going to be $25. This drug's going to cost you whatever the astronomical amount of money was. And then the patient would get mad, and we go through this whole thing. But I would say, listen, this drug's actually been out for a really long time. And if I call your doctor and we can get them to change it, you know, it's going to be $5 or $10 or whatever their stupid little copay was, or even free if it was on my free list or whatever. And so then I became a hero to the patient, because I just saved a buku's amount of money. And usually the doctors would comply because the patient needed to be on the medication, whether it be the new improved or the old. And so that's where I realized, like, pharma does not have the people's backs, not by a long shot. So then when we started having to vaccinate, that was like in 2010, they started going, oh, you need to vaccinate and do the flu shot, and I had to get certified to immunize. I've just always seen it as a hoax, because I saw where if I can't trust you, I can't trust you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if I can't trust them with medication, how am I going to trust them with what they're saying about vaccines or the flu shot or any other thing? I've always seen the flu shot as a huge scam. I've never gotten a flu shot. When they told me at the pharmacy I was working for, you got to get a flu shot and you got to get the Hep B series, I said, you can kiss my butt.
Yeah.
And, you know, I ended up getting paperwork and refused it all. I'm so thankful I did.
Let me ask you this question really quick, just out of curiosity. Years ago, I have gotten very few flu shots in my life, but I did get them when I was younger. And I went to get one, and the lady refused to give me a flu shot on the arm that I had my tattoo. And she said, she had to do it in the eye. I said, well, what if I had a sleeve on each arm? She's like, well, I don't know. But she would not give me a flu shot through my tattoo. Have you heard anything of this sort? I'm just curious. I was.
I haven't. I would have to research that. I can honestly say I can remember had that issue. I gave quite a few flu shots between 2010 and 2016, unfortunately. I don't remember ever hearing anything.
It didn't make any sense to me, especially now knowing what I know. Like, what's the difference? It's going to get in my body one way or the other,
that doesn't really make any sense. It sounds like she was just freaked out.
Maybe. You were talking about the doctors introducing like a new medicine just to promote it, make more money, whatever.
Or pharma.
Yeah. My grandmother has cancer, and she's going through chemo against my will. But it's not up to me. My whole family thinks that's what's best for her. I can't say anything about it. But and they're telling her that there's this new pill coming out. It's not out yet, but the submitter file to see if she qualifies, and if it does, she might not have to go through a second round of chemo. But now the pill's not out yet, and she's getting to a point where she needs chemo. So now they're just going to put her on a second round of chemo. But it's just like, what kind of game? What does that mean? Like, oh, this pill's coming out, but it's not out yet, and you have to qualify for it. Like, I don't know. It just seems so hokey.
It is, and you start to look. Speaking of package inserts, at the cancer drugs. This is back when I was working for the one company, but I was on the phone with this lady. I can't remember what the name of the drug was she was on. She almost died from the drug, not the cancer, but the drug. And I pulled this drug up, and I pulled up the drug information about it, and I'm reading all the side effects, and I am like, my God, how did this ever get approved? I mean, it's just, so I don't know, maybe your grandmother's lucky. What kind of cancer does she have? Or
it's ovarian cancer, I believe. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
Yeah. But either way, it's sad, and even when she went through the first round of chemo, like they said it was gone. They're like, oh, it's not, we're not seeing any signs of it, blah, 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 but we're still going to keep going with the chemo just to make sure. I'm like, why?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm like, when I heard that, I was trying to tell my family, I'm like, no, that's it. Like, she doesn't need to keep doing this. And then no one ever explained to her, like, she should change her diet now. Okay, she should change her diet. Well, she has a sweet tooth. She was just eating nothing but sugar. So she was feeding this cancer, and it ended up coming back. And nobody knows why. They can't believe it. I'm like, if you would listen to me, I get what people call the fluoride stare. I try and tell them, and it's like silence. It's like their brain doesn't even process what I just said.
If you don't change what gave you cancer in the first place, you're not going to really heal yourself. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't understand. So many people just want this. Oh, just fix me and keep fixing me with pills or with.
Yeah, surgery. I don't want to change the way I live.
But I'm going to keep. But so they do not want to change the way they live. They're addicted to things. They don't want to change their diet, and it's like you're feeding disease and cancer. You're causing disease, and you're feeding cancer and eating things that are carcinogenic and giving you cancer.
Exactly.
And of course, so many Americans, look at it, like you said, America, it's so much of what we're eating is poison, laden with chemicals, GMO, so much sugar, processed everything, glyphosate and everything. It's like layer after layer after layer of things that are super unhealthy and
all by design,
carcinogenic and just terrible for you. And like, you don't need more medicine and more healthcare. You need figure out what the root cause of these things are and fix your lifestyle and your habits and your eating habits.
Yeah.
And you'll solve all of it or almost all of it, guaranteed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in homeopathy. Years ago, I had a horse and reverse cancer in that horse through homeopathy. It was amazing. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And that's when I knew, like, this was like back in 2005, 6, something like that. That's what I knew, man. There's a big cover up going on here. You know, it's kind of been a journey for me, as I'm sure it has been for you all too, but just as you see the alternative medicines that are actually about healing and not returning, like you don't have to keep going back for more. That's where, you know, we just, America wants you to be sick because there's no money in well people.
No,
Exactly.
not at all. No, not at all. And what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's trying to wean themselves off of these drugs? You know, people really want help, and I know that's what you do. But if they're listening, you know, is there any starting point that you could really recommend?
Well, I mean, first you really have to look at what people are eating, because the old you are what you eat. That's a huge, I used to have asthma. I realize now I was vaccine damaged as a child, but I didn't know that for the longest time. But changing my eating habits, I used to have horrible allergies, and just feeding my body what it needs, the organic foods, the fruits, the vegetables, you know, whole grains. I'm more vegan. Not that everybody has to be 100% plant-based to heal. I don't necessarily believe that. I just feel like plant-based is more environmentally friendly, kinder to the earth, the animals, all that. But first you got to look at what people are eating. That's the first thing. And if they're not willing to change that, frankly, not much is going to change. But I work with them on that. And then it depends on what drugs they're trying to come off. I mean, so many things like high blood pressure, diabetes, type 2 are improvable or even reversible with dietary changes. That's where this How Not to Die comes in. It's a New York Times bestseller, and I liked it for patients in that it breaks everything down in a chapter to where it's like how not to die of heart disease, how not to die of lung disease, and then it gives you all these different diseases, and then what you specifically need to eat in order to heal yourself. And it's not guru medicine. It's not anything really freaky that you can't buy just at the average grocery store.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
You know, and there's detox protocols out there, which I'm actually in the process of learning more about. But detoxing, but even just if you start juicing is a huge thing that you can do to help detox yourself and give yourself the nutrients that you need in order for your body to begin to heal and reverse disease.
Yeah. And everybody's going to be watching this. It's coming out Thursday night. They're going to be watching this right after Christmas, and they're going to think about all the food they just ate. And they're going to be like, oh, damn, I better start juicing.
Yeah. Start the detox.
But, you know, I just want people to know that there is hope, and like where the medical community says, you know, Western medicine, there is no cure for COPD. There's no cure for asthma. You know, once you have these illnesses, you're going to have them the rest of your life. That is a lie from the pit of hell. It's an absolute lie. And so there is hope, and there is ways to reverse disease. And it's just a matter of educating yourself and being willing to make the changes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
And it's difficult.
Have the most amazing life ever.
It is very difficult, especially in the society we live in, and it's going to take sacrifices.
Yeah.
It's going to take discipline. It's not easy by any means, especially when you're used to a certain diet. You have to fight those cravings. You know, I still even struggle with it. You know, I know all this stuff, but occasionally, you know, I'll eat something I know I'm not supposed to be eating, and I immediately. What's interesting is because now it's few and far between. I used to eat it all the time. Now that craving will come back, I'll eat something. Immediately, my body feels the effects of it. And that's how I know it's poison.
Exactly.
And you know what isn't poison just by the way you feel. You know, you should never get tired after you eat. Hands down. Like, and that's what most meals do. What happens when you leave a restaurant or whatever? You're tired. It's
exactly, but you know, you just said it, Tyler. You said the way you feel is what's guiding your decisions.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think at first, initially, that it's it's hard, but when that person starts to feel better, and I know the phone calls that I had were few and far between, but I can remember talking to this man whose wife had had a stent put in. She and he lived in California, and they were like in their 70s. His wife, man, that was her wake-up call. She put their butts on a plant-based diet. She'd gone to some classes. He started telling me this over the phone. It was a really cool phone call, and how he'd lost like 40 pounds, and he could not believe how good the food was that she was cooking for them now. And he said, I will never go back to eating the way we were. This was a 70-year-old man. I mean, that just gave me so much hope that if people just start to see the light, they're going to keep moving towards the light, you know, and that's all you can do. I used to say, you can throw them a line, they got to reach out and grab it, but I'm here to help throw you the line anyway.
Yeah. And I noticed that I'm just like naturally at a healthier weight than I was when I used to eat meat and all that crap without doing anything, but just changing, you know, you don't have to, it doesn't require all this strenuous exercise or just working out all the time. You really just, you'd be shocked at the results you get just energetically, for one. That's why I did I tried to quit eating meat for a week, and I had like my energy level spiked because it wasn't a meal unless I had meat, you know.
Right.
And now I saw those results immediately, and that's what kept me going. Like you said, you see that light.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect, but it's definitely you have to take steps towards it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's excellent.
All right. Well, I'm not even sure how long we've been going right now. Actually, I don't know what time we actually started. Yeah, but we didn't start
the session. It's probably like hour and 15. Maybe.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start wrapping it up then. Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody needs to hear all this stuff. So keep going on your channel. I'm definitely going to check out LinkedIn. Anybody listening, go to the Wise Pharmacist on YouTube. That's the name of it, correct?
Right, the Wise Pharmacist, or I can be found on Facebook as the Wise Pharmacist, or Lori Wise, or LinkedIn as Lori Wise. And I'm working on a website, which is thewisepharmacist.com, but I haven't got to finish pulling that together. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so awesome. Keep doing what you're doing.
You guys too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Once again, I said we said that like 5 times now.
Thank you guys so much. You guys, what you're doing is awesome, and continue the mission.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And everybody listening, don't forget to check us out on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, BitChute, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are finally sponsored by somebody. So Omnia Radiation Balancer. Go to their website or click the link below. And Lori, if you don't know, it's a patch that you put on your cell phone that helps. It basically puts up a field to protect against harmful EMF,
radiation.
Yeah, radiation and all that stuff. So
actually, I saw your advertisement on with Gilliland. One of the I was watching. I saw it. I thought that really does look pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So just make sure you click the link if you're gonna purchase it. And anyway, thanks for listening. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Good night.
Good night.